Yes, and we're on.
And
Well,
we're on.
good morning, afternoon, and evening. And I'm here with Kathryn Hudson from Paris. And
Oui, oui, oui.
bonjour.
Bonjour.
So I met Kathryn a long time ago, and I must say, from my side, I think we're really good friends. We see each other maybe once or twice a year, and it would be nice if we could see each other more. Paris is one of my favorite cities, but I love the way Kathryn teaches the system of Reiki, and she does lots of other stuff. So we're just gonna, chat. And what another fun thing, Kathryn, is really what I like when I go to Paris and we catch up or I stay at your place is just that we also have so much fun together. Like I like it where we just have that day where we go like, oh, just go walking and we walk through Paris. Don't you think so?
Oh, absolutely. It's really that. I mean, isn't all of it about the fun? Not for nothing, but and I'm saying not for nothing, which shows that I'm not from Paris. I'm actually from the Bronx. But absolutely. I mean, it's what drew me to you. In fact, I met Frans for the first time when I did his master level Reiki class, and it's many years ago, and I had kind of given up on Reiki. But then I walked in, and the goofiest guy in the room was Frans. There were all these people who took themselves a little bit seriously, some of them, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? And then I'm like, oh, who's he? I bet he's not the teacher, but let me go talk to him. He looks like fun. And sure enough, he was the teacher. So from that moment on, we have been having fun in a lot of different ways. And I really appreciate the view of Reiki that you propose, which is so different from other views, and which is why I kind of let it go, let it drop. But no, there should be joy, no?
Well, I agree. I agree. And this is also why I really connect with you. It's this beautiful, and when I hear about your teaching or see your teaching or read your books, there's a lot of joy and pleasure and fun. You want to get the most out of life. And of course, not always easy, but that's the juice of life. And
yeah, and you hear it so often that, in fact, during this confinement, there were even people that I was trying not to be happy around because it's a little difficult to be glum. But people were almost taking it personally that I would dare to be positive and upbeat in such a time. So when we do meet with other people who feel like, life, it can be challenging. Of course it can. We're on the planet Earth, for goodness sakes. But that doesn't mean that we need to beat our chest and rend our clothes and tear our hair.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I think I was just saying my mum this the other day. My mum has been such a great example for me. And I wish she speaks English and I could have like an interview like this with my mum. But because I mean, in my family, a lot of stuff happened, we weren't rich and they were a hardworking family. And my mother's sister died very young. My mother's brother died very young, etc., etc. But, she was just always this wonderful, joyful, took it by day. Life is okay. Shit happens, but let's keep laughing. Let's enjoy it, and she's always such a great example. And this is, I think, for me, also a spiritual practice. It's not about, no, we're going to teach you some spirit.
Stop having fun. The spiritual stuff is serious.
That's it. It's actually the joy of it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like she's kind of a master already with the idea of taking one day at a time. That makes the burden much lighter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's a choice. You can choose to go into it's so hard, poor me, or you can say, it's so hard, but what the hell? This is what we got. Am I going to be happy today, or am I going to be sad or pissed off or whatever it is? And really, no matter what happens, that's a genius. But your mom does sound really inspiring, and it's too bad I don't speak her language. I'd love to meet her.
Well, I had a student over for a few days, 2 years ago, Max, and so I was in my apartment and said, Max, we been out for dinner or something. It was a beautiful evening. I said, Max, what do you want to do? We can hop on a bike. He was from the US, or we can take a walk. And he goes, could we visit your mom? And I go, yeah, if you want. So I went to my mom, and it was just so fun. We played a board game and we chatted, and it was just such a wonderful evening. And I thought, wow, this is just it's such a perfect moment where, I mean, we could do anything. We could sit there going, whatever. But actually, just that unification with my mom and Max and me, and being in that space was actually very healing and opening. And he loved it. And I thought that was such a great moment of, we don't always have to sit in that meditation. And I think this is also what, in a lot of modern spirituality, where we forget what is actually meditation, and actually it is the joy of life, the juice of life, and that interaction with people. And you do that also so well. I mean, I see when I see your videos, or just when we go out in daily life, and the way you communicate with people in daily life, in the street, and in a cafe or restaurant or wherever we are, is just so beautiful to watch.
Well, I'm not the one between the two of us that's photo bombing everybody. Not for nothing. And I heard you did it in New York too, and you kind of do it everywhere you go. But it seems to me that meditation, of course, it's just a breath of fresh air to go into those deeper spaces. But isn't it preparing us to be more steady and able to enjoy ourselves when we're out of meditation?
Absolutely.
When we're on the planet, we're not here just to sit on our cushion and meditate all the time. The idea of meditation is to then use it as a launching pad to be able to be in that Zen space, no matter what we're doing or who we're with or who we're photobombing.
Well, absolutely. And I think this always, for me also, it creates, for me in myself, a freedom to photobomb or to interact with people, and to actually see sometimes their worry, sometimes their fear, sometimes their joy, that there is something exciting happening, a new person, and we can communicate. And I love all of these interactions to see, and sometimes also to trigger within myself and within other people, because that's where the juice is of our spiritual practice. And then we can actually let people show we don't have to be fearful, we don't have to be worried. I remember I was somewhere in the US, because Kathryn Hudson is brought up in the Bronx. I was somewhere
what's up? Sorry, I can't help myself.
I was somewhere in the US, and with this lady, she was a bit older, maybe 60, and she was driving. And she said, Frans, we have to be careful. This is a bit dangerous area. And I don't know, I can't remember where we were. And we're standing in front of just stopped in front of this traffic light. And this car drives up next to it. These two huge guys with these muscles, these golden chains, these boom, boom, hip hop music or whatever kind of music was out of the window. And the guy had his arm hanging out. And she was I could feel it stiffening up. And so I lowered the window. And I go, yo, man, this is really nice music. And he was so friendly.
It's not something.
And then we drove off, and he was, man, nice talking to you. And she was just so fearful. And said, Frans, you can't do this. I said, why not? Look at it, we're just normal, friendly people. But this is we have to engage. This is where a spiritual practice lies.
Yeah, and being in that authentic space, I'm just immediately thinking of the guy who you opened up the window to. I mean, you open up to, this guy is probably scaring everybody all day long.
Yeah.
So nobody talks to him. Nobody has just a simple conversation with him. What a pleasure for him to be seen without this distance.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, moving into a space where we can be completely comfortable, follow the spontaneity of what I would call guidance, what comes up, what bubbles up, and follow the fun of it. Breaking down those barriers, which aren't real anyway.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. And not worrying what the world thinks. I think you said she was of a certain age at about 60, and I'm staring down the barrel at 60. It's not that far off. Huh?
Me
and
too.
So what the hell do I care what people think? Seriously. I mean, I think that's the plague of youth. And one of the beauties of aging is that I don't have to worry about what people think. I didn't kind of worry about it in the past either, but now I'm really not, now I'm really off the chain. So I'm not photobombing people like you, but maybe one day, maybe that's something to aspire to. I'm not sure.
That comes on the next walk to Paris, Hey, but I want to know about your book. So Kathryn has written 3 books so far. Tell me about your books.
So the first book was kind of, it's kind of like a primer on spiritual practices. So there are chapters. It's the book I would have wanted to have found when I began. So it kind of traces my journey with Reiki, with angels, with pilgrimage, with a lot of different practices, and shamanism, and tells some stories. So there are some funny stories, there are some scary stories, there's, it's just the truth of what I experienced, but also with practices you can test at home. So you can kind of dip your toes into these different practices, oh my goodness, without venturing from the safety of your home. You can kind of get a feel of what you like and what you don't like right off the bat. And then the idea is after that, I'll be expanding on those subjects in specific books. So my second book is just about angels. It's the book is coming out in English now in September, Inviting Angels into Your Life. Thank you, and thank you for reviewing it. What I like about it's teaching in the form of a book, but I'm still telling stories. We're still having fun, I hope. I laugh as I'm writing it, so I'm hoping, from what I hear, people are laughing as they read it. But there's also practices and, do try this at home kind of stuff. So yeah, the angels are coming out in the fall, and apparently the crystals are coming out next year. So I play with a lot of different things, crystals and angels. I'm currently working on life purpose. I think it's joy, but so the topics, although they're individual topics, for me, they're all Reiki. Because Reiki is this universal energy. It's the energy of all that is. So you've written all of the good books about Reiki, so I'm not sure I'll ever write about it. But,
no, but you girl, I like it. And this is always fun also. So sometimes when I go to Paris, I stay at Kathryn's house on the red sofa there.
On the couch.
On the
right
couch.
there.
But so we often talk about, what I also like, we often talk stories to each other, about our youth, what happens. And I think we could write some really great stories about the two of us, what happens in our life. But I think this is so wonderful to see also in your book and in your teachings that you bring that to life. Your life as a banker, your life living in the Bronx, your life now is traveling around the world. I mean, you also teach in, everywhere in Europe, in the Maldives, the US, etc., about angels, about crystals, about the system of Reiki. And just this one story popped into mind. Do you remember we bought that wooden turba? So we went to this shop. I was walking along through Paris and I said, oh, this is a lovely little shop here. I want to, on Ile de Louis. And it sells these Asian articrafts, and there's this wooden purba. And a purba is, it's like a dagger. Oh, you're going to grab it. And
you mean this one?
That one, yes. And specifically, they say the wooden ones are used for healing. And so we go into the shop, and Kathryn holds this one and goes like, whoa, fuck, this is... Then we go away, and then I think we're halfway home or something, and you want to go back to get it because you couldn't let it slip. And then in the night, you put it in your bedroom, and then the next morning you woke up, I woke up from, you walk around the room like at 5 in the morning or something, going, I don't think I can sleep, Frans. This bloody thing has kept me up all night.
But isn't it that the way? And now it doesn't bother me at all. So no. It's kind of like the big honking geodes that I have there.
Yeah.
There are there's this Reiki energy, and sometimes we can find it in concentrated doses in objects or in crystals, but it always brings us back to the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And always brings us back to Reiki. And what I love about Reiki specifically is the simplicity of it. There's no need for crystals. There's no need, because earth energy is already there. There's even no need for angels, because angelic highest energy is already there. So of course, you know, I kind of hang around with the angels anyway, because it's fun, because I love them.
but this is an interesting, you know, what I really find, Kathryn, is this, again, a story comes to mind. I remember, and I think it was in a class, and I think it was a reiki on this woman, and at that moment I felt these big wings appear and go like this around this lady, like an angelic hug in a way. And afterwards, and it was interesting because one person in the class was saying, oh, it felt really like this, or just a very, very open space, and one person said, oh, it felt like deities or Buddhists, you know. And then this woman goes like, she felt exactly what I felt, and said, oh, it felt like this big angel wrapped his arms around me. And I think also we all interpreted different things in a different way, depending on what we brought up, what we like, what we're connect to, and also the moment of the day. So when I watch Lucifer, the show on Netflix, then of course when I do a hands-on healing, I feel like I'm Lucy.
There's power there.
But this is it, you know, and they are, for me, all wonderful tools what we can really work with.
I think with the fun of, you know, you talk about spirituality, and when we move in these circles, you meet so many people. And what I love is, what do you get up to? You know, what's your gig? What is it that floats your boat? What are your practices? What's important to you? And it seems to me always like there's this field of flowers, and each flower is opening up with its own colors and its own rhythm, at its own heights. And how much more fun is that than uniformity of practice? But what I do love about Reiki is it feels like it's the fertile ground through which all of it comes.
Well, this is so the system of Reiki is my main practice, and then at the moment I studied with a Buddhist priest. I've studied with a Taoist teacher for many years.
Beautiful.
You know, and then other, as you say, shamanism and all these things come out of it. And of course, we need to be clear when we're teaching. And this is what I like about you as well. You're very clear. Now I'm doing this. Now I'm doing that. Now I'm doing this, and not making a big hotspots out of it. You're very clear in that, and that's also what I really enjoy about the way you're teaching and the way you express it all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I don't think I could do it otherwise. You know, for me, it's these are complementary practices, bringing me more fully into what is Reiki. And so you know, I understand why people would add things like to Reiki. When I'm teaching it, I teach about it like the game of telephone. You know, when kids play telephone, and the first one thinks of a phrase and whispers it in the ear, and then it makes its way around the room, the circle, and then when it comes back, it's like, I didn't say that. So, but natural and normal, because we're each children, if we can imagine it that way, of a creator or of creation, and so we create, and what we hear is not necessarily what the other person said.
Absolutely.
And so our translation of it, and so just moving through with confidence that each one of us always finds the next step on our personal path, whether it's a purba, or like you, crazy man, standing under, and I know that you've had these experiences, and it must be just amazing, standing under icy cold cascading waterfalls in waterfall practice. But what I love about you is that you've gone and undertaken the practices that Mika Usui, who's the founder, who brought Reiki into the world, that you followed literally in his footsteps to have the direct experience, which means I, as a Reiki teacher, don't have to. Thank you very much. I'm not going under the freezing cold water, at least not this year. We'll see. I'm getting older. I'm not going to do that.
I know. It's not my favorite thing either.
So much to the table. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is it. And I think this is... You know, for me, ultimately, it doesn't matter what or how we practice, as long as we bring forth that compassion and kindness, etc. If we become more and more narrow-minded, then we have to look at our practice and say, hey, this particular practice is not suitable for you, is not working for you. And therefore, ultimately, any kind of spiritual practice is about becoming more love and compassion. And if you feel you become more narrow-minded, then change it. And but this is also sometimes, I think, for a lot of people, and I can really see this also now when this coronavirus and people start to go more on the big, wonderful internet, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I can also see that for a lot of people, it's an income, you know, it's a commercial thing, and then their own practice is not as juicy, and therefore it becomes quite narrow-minded in a way.
Yeah.
But it's first of all really not as a commercialism. It's really for yourself. And Dogen, the Zen master, and I can't remember the exact quote, but he said something within enlightenment there is food and shelter. Within food and shelter, there is no enlightenment.
I like that.
And that for me was this really kind of interesting thing, because when we practice, then we realize also, man, I don't need all of this stuff. You know, as you know, I moved back to Holland a few years ago, 2.5 years ago. I came back out of Australia for 20 years with 4 suitcases, and that was it. It was great, actually, to, and now, even now, I have some people come to my place in Holland, and I go, I've got this drawer full of stuff, and I go, would you like any of this?
Yeah, I know I benefited from your giving away, your letting go when you moved. And so thank you very much for that. But it's true. And I find myself doing the same thing, you know, paring back and eliminating it.
Yeah.
It seemed like things that gave pleasure before now are fine, but don't carry pleasure. So there's no point in really having it around accumulated, pass it on so it brings pleasure someplace else.
Well, absolutely. That's a beautifully said. Yeah. We have to pass it on. And then for me also that, like if this cup doesn't really, well, okay, now it's a good function, but if I have it just sitting somewhere.
What's in the cup? Oh, I'm kidding.
Vodka. But if it's just sitting there and it's not doing anything and I'm not getting the pleasure of it, then I better give it to someone who now can enjoy the pleasure of it, and therefore it gets a new light, a new meaning, a new juiciness again. And I think this is the beauty, if we can do that with anything. You know, then for me a certain quality starts to arise, and that for me is really that spirituality of the open hand, letting it flow, letting it come. It doesn't matter, it comes and goes, and whatever it is, we can be free in that.
Absolutely. And this I loved the quote that you said about in enlightenment there's food and shelter, and in food and shelter there's not enlightenment. Another definition of enlightenment that comes to mind in the moment is the measure of enlightenment is how much fun we're having.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if we're actually having fun and enjoying life, the accumulation of things is rather a burden, because our energy is invested in all of it. And it's almost the opposite of the hoarder who starts to buy and bring things in and never let anything go, and how much that weighs down the light and joy, which is our nature. And so once we're stepping into that light and joy, it's like, let me get this done. Sorry, but if this offends anybody, but it's kind of like if you're on a beautiful beach and you're there you're there all alone or with someone close. It's like, let me get these clothes off. You know,
yes,
the
absolutely.
idea of just letting it go, letting it all go. Anything that's not lifting, that it just goes. And some things that are beautiful also can bring us down if we're in the accumulation mode.
Well, absolutely. This is why next time I'm going to Paris, I'm going to walk naked through Paris.
I'm not walking with you because that's illegal here.
But no, but it's you know that I used to go to this shirt shop in Paris, you know, and I would buy these nice shirts, and so I did it for quite a for years, and then suddenly I thought, well, these shirts don't suit me anymore, and so I gave them all away. And these people who wear them, actually, I see them sometimes, and I go, "Oh, that's my shirt.
That's a nice shirt. I have good taste."
Or my son the other day, he rings me in a video. I go, "Oh, he's got my T-shirt on," and it's great to give that away. And now I'm buying new shirts, and I think also, you know, what I found is that some people say, well, do you need something new? Well, not really, but if I don't hoard the old and I can let that go, then some new things come in. And for me, this is also that flow of life. I support the shops, you know, like it's this, is that flow. And for me, money in that way is let it flow. Goods is about letting it flow, like this singing bowl or my cup of tea or my laptop or my book or the clothes. It's all about flowing. And this is, for me, really a spiritual practice. You know, when we feel that flow in our spiritual practice, then we can flow more in our daily life.
Absolutely. And I think that what was appropriate to us energetically before is no longer. If we're continuing to move on, one thing you taught me that I love is that if how we're teaching does not change, we should stop teaching. And it's absolutely the case, because we're always teaching from the seat of where we are today. And if I'm in the same place I was a year ago, then I haven't been working on myself. I haven't been doing my practice, and I have no business teaching anybody anything. Similarly, the clothes that I would wear a year ago are not going to be what's in accord in energetic alignment with how I am today. So it's normal that things change, but isn't it funny? Because I know for a fact that sometimes people still want to give you their shirts.
Well, but this is
people like to keep us where they recognized our being. You know, I know they still want to give you chocolate too.
I had this one person who got angry with me that I wasn't wearing that shirt, and she was a bit upset. And I go, well, you know, but this is not me at this moment in time.
That's right.
And I think this is a really important element. And you're really hitting the hammer on the nail, because if I feel something through my practice has changed within me, and I feel those shirts are not compatible with who I am, and yet I'm trying to wear them, therefore I have a conflict arising within me, and therefore I'm not being in that flowing space. I'm not being true to my way of my being. So actually, I need to be able to say, let that go. It doesn't suit me. And, you know, I might keep it hanging in a cupboard just in case I might go back to that space, but maybe not. But at the same time, if someone comes, and my son came with a friend in end of December, beginning of January, and I opened my cupboard and I said, this is the part I'm not wearing. Pick out whatever you like. And they were all trying things on.
Fun.
And it was just such a fun evening, actually, just to do this. And for me, is as you say, you know, even in our teaching, if we still teach the same as 5 years ago, and it doesn't mean changing the exercises, but the way we implement them, the way we explain it, the way we do it, it has to change. Else it means we're not changing ourselves, and then it becomes bloody boring, and then it becomes a routine, and then it's just a financial way, really. It's not an expression of your journey.
No, that's right. And even though there are people who, like the woman, you know, will get pissed off because we're breaking those rules, you know, oh, where is that horrible thing she gave me? I have to put it on because she's coming over, this kind of thing. Getting rid of all of it and just letting everything come fresh and new. And the idea of, if we give a gift, it's not our business what happens with it afterward.
Else we haven't really given it, isn't it?
That's right. You're still hanging on. It's still in your pocket. That's my shirt that I gave that person. Why isn't he wearing it? So I remember once I was teaching far away, very far away. And I was in the South Pacific, and somebody had given me a very nice gift, but it was too big.
I remember this story.
Yeah, it was too big to go into the bag. So before I left, I re-gifted it. Well, it was an island and people talk. And the person I re-gifted it to, not the person who'd given it to me, but the person I had re-gifted it to also with a fresh gift that came only from me, but still doesn't talk to me to this day. So, you know, sometimes you just have to let people go, like you have to let things go if they're not, if they're raining on your parade, if people are bringing us down, at some point, it's important to stand up for yourself, and being true to your way and your being means, okay, I love you anyway. If you ever want to come back, I'm here, but you know, I'm not going to chase you down either. What am I going to drag it, slam you down on the Reiki table and make you, people want to walk away, and let them go. And that is, that's a pretty recently acquired wisdom, but effectively, it's interesting how people want to keep you sometimes cornered where you're comfortable for them.
Well, because this is, I think also because this is the way they identify you. So for example, Frans wears those kind of shirts and he eats chocolate. This is how I identify him. And if that changes, then, oh, but which box do I put him now or her? And this is what I noticed too, is that if we do this for ourselves, you know, we become stuck in our own identification in the I. And therefore, there's no fluid thing. This is what I like. This is what I need. This is, and therefore, we become actually very stuck like this. But if we let go of the I, we don't need this I of identification.
That's right.
But a lot of people find it very difficult because they like to put people in certain boxes. You know, oh, you're the angel lady, or Frans is the Reiki person, or this is, but actually, when you're fluid through that, sometimes people go, yeah, but I don't understand now. What are you? I'm all of it, right? Because we're all.
I'm a unicorn.
Hang on, we're both unicorns.
I'm not even going there. But that's it. And people like to put others in boxes to make themselves feel comfortable, and also put ourselves in boxes.
Yeah.
You know, how many times do we climb into the molding that'll make other people comfortable with who we are and where we're at today? For me, Frans, life ends when we are no longer moving on to the new. And I'm not talking about leaving people behind or anything like that. I'm talking about fresh, in the moment. Maybe what I like to think of for myself as practice is, what are my habits? How can I break them?
Well, this is it. This is it. You know, my teacher in Japan, the first time I went there, he knew I was a vegetarian. I was vegetarian for 20 years. And on the third night, he puts this big dish full of raw fish in front of me. Bon appetit. And then he gave a lesson afterwards, a teaching why he did it. And he wanted to see if I did get angry, if I did eat it or not, and et cetera, et cetera. And afterwards, he was very kind. How's your stomach? Because it's not used to eating fish. You're okay, you know. But that teaching, that moment, it was so powerful. I didn't realize it at that moment, because I realized, shit, I put myself in all these boxes. And, you know, when we're in a box, we become very, very narrow-minded. I'm a vegetarian, I'm a vegan, I'm this, I'm that. No, this is not what we are. It's a label we stick on ourselves, and what we actually have to break free. We just have to be living. We don't need to say, I'm vegan, I'm vegetarian, I am this, I am this, you know. This. And because then we create a battle, because then I'm saying, oh, I am a vegetarian, I'm against meat eaters, because this is the thing.
That's it.
And the other day I was somewhere and someone gave me a pot, and for dinner, I said, oh, Frans, I bought you this. And it was
somebody gave you pot?
No, not a pot, but it was
you're in Amsterdam, so you're in Holland. So I was just wondering. I didn't hear you right. Sorry. That's quite a spliff there. It's yellow.
It is a very...
Oh, sorry. Someone gave you a pot.
But it was an earthenware pot.
Nice.
As a meal, right? And it was a chicken dish. And I said, oh, this is great. And I ate it. And afterwards I go, actually, were you vegetarian, Frans? I said, well, today I'm flexitarian. It doesn't matter. And it is that whole thing. Actually, it was a delicious meal. But if we get so caught up, then, you know, and it's with anything. And then we create, this is good and this is not good. You know, my box is better than your box. And then we step completely, and we've mistaken actually what a spiritual practice is. It's like spiritual practice for me is actually ripping those boxes apart and open them up and say, hey, this is complete freedom, spiritual freedom. Well, of course, then is freedom in life. Photobombing.
That's exactly that. Yeah, or walking naked down the Champs-Elysees.
Well,
I look forward to that in the future. But it's absolutely that. Once there's a label, there's an identification, and that means I'm right and that person is wrong. And it's all just, that's bullshit. I mean, that person is another expression that's finding its way. And this is an expression that's finding its way. And maybe it's true that we do vegetarian practice, or maybe it's true that there's vegan practice, or whatever it is. The moment that we make that right and the other's wrong, or the moment we make that our identity, we've diminished the truth of who we are.
Absolutely, yeah.
You taught something great, and you teach it still, and I love it. It's the idea of firm and flexible.
Yeah.
That not that there's like willy-nilly nothing. So there's a firmness. So we're watching ourselves and keeping ourselves not carrying the burden of anger or worry, etc. But also a flexibility. So there's breath and life with a capital L, which is Reiki, if you ask me, but effectively that it can flow through us. So I'm with you on that. I'm surprised. So now I can be very flexible when if you come and stay on the couch. We'll just go to the restaurant across the street. And you are coming. You're coming in November.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
Should the world come back to normal, you're coming back to Paris in November. You know, I stay in Paris. That's normally a season where I head to the States, but I stay insofar as possible every year, simply to translate your Reiki retreat, because it's just so enriching. Oh, it's not a sacrifice.
And you do it so well. You do it so well too.
It's for myself. Yeah. Well, I love it, you know, and there's always the deepening of the practice, and you bring back things from Japan, so I don't have to go there, although I do love Japan. It is far. Oh, so thank you very much for that. And my students just love having you. So I will look forward to that again this year.
Well, you know, Paris is just...
it doesn't stink.
You know, it's such a great city. And I also like just for me, you know, I lived in Australia, I traveled all around the world, but there is something for me in the French way, particularly in Paris, is the way people dress, the way people... and it's... I don't know, there is a certain elan to it. I just saw a trailer of a French movie about an older man reminiscing about, I think, a woman he met, and he meets someone, again, who looks like her, and who's also the same age as him. And the trailer itself, I sit there and I go, man, I'm in love. I'm in love with this culture. It's such a different way. And I think this is also the beauty of traveling, that you realize that the way it is in your country can be also more flexible, you know, that's firm and flexible. And that is the beauty of traveling as well. It really opens your mind.
Yeah, it allows us to see the commonality that other people are not alien or foreign, even if they are living in another place geographically on our planet. But I will go further and say, I think you fit into France more than I do. You have the style down. I mean, I love France. I'm actually waiting to hear about the French nationality. I was supposed to find out in May, but who knows when I'll find out now. But effectively, you got the style down. I'm still kind of a, you know, myself.
I'm still myself too. I think we need to really just buy a lovely big property in the south of France, put some chalets in it, and then we have the Reiki commune. I'm happy to do the cleaning. I don't really care.
Good. You do the cleaning, I'll go. Yeah, that should be my spiritual practice, cleaning.
Yeah.
Something like this is an interesting idea. You say it in jest, but let's let that kind of hang around a little bit.
Yeah, you never know.
I
think
you never know.
You never
Not
know.
a permanent commune.
Well, no, I think, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
permanent is firm and flexible.
Firm and flexible. I think so. That's firm and flexible.
Yeah. So I thank you for the firm and flexible view of the world, and for this wonderful time. What a great idea to get together.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Bit.
And what is your website if people want to check it out?
It's kathrynhudson.fr for the moment, and that's KATHRYN, Hudson.fr. It's going to change soon, but not yet. And the book that's coming out in English is Inviting Angels into Your Life. So thanks very much, Frans. You know, I appreciate you so much, and look forward to seeing you again, whether it's in the States or here in France.
Yeah.
What is your website?
My website is www.ihreiki.com.
I don't know how to make the H with the body, so I was going to do
Reiki.
I was going to try.
It's Reiki. Oh, we could make a great song.
Yeah, no, it's all right. R is hard too. It's a great website.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and all the best. Hope you have a great day. Love you. And thanks to anybody who's watching this. Nice to spend time with you, and thanks for the laughs.
Bonjour.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Bye-bye.